Welcome to Ritualize Your Life Challenge, 36 days. I am Sharada Devi. It is day 18 of our 36 days. And we're going to start with our 2 prayers that we've been chanting for most of the days. And let everyone arrive. Warm welcome. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Aim Hrim Om Saraswatye Namaha. Aim Hrim Om Saraswatye Namaha. Aim Hrim Om Saraswatye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, welcome everyone. Hello Kate, hello Theo, Om Carmen, hello Satare, Om Sophie, Om Ulrika, Om those that are still joining and those that are watching the recordings. Today is the first day of a cycle which is called the Shravana Masa. It's the cycle now where we're entering after the full moon. Yesterday was full moon and we had a full day dedicated to the teachings, the truths that liberates us. And now we are entering the Shravana Masa, the cycle that is dedicated to Shravanam. Shravanam means the sacred studies. So in the Vedic teachings, we have the threefold methods. It's not really the word that I'm looking for, but maybe as the word is going to come. The threefold pursuit of gaining knowledge. And the first one is called Shravanam, Shushrusha, to have the desire to listen. And so Shravanam means the active participation, the listening. So Shravanam means to listen attentively. And the second part, or the second aspect of this threefold pursuit is Mananam. And so Mananam means to inquire, to resolve all the doubts, the questions that come up when you do listen, when you do Shravanam and you receive the teaching. And basically the teaching is simply removing self-ignorance. Often there are doubts and questions surfacing. And so then the Mananam, the process of Mananam, method is not really the right word. It's more the process. So the process of listening, the process of resolving the doubts, the questions that come up. Why couldn't it be like this? Couldn't it also be like that? This teaching, this philosophy, this school of thought says this about that. Couldn't not be like that? And so all these questions get to be resolved in what we call Mananam. And then the third process is called Nididhyasanam. And so Nididhyasanam means the process of being in contemplation. So contemplating what you have learned, contemplating about your knowledge. And basically it is to bring what you have learned and really be with that, start to embody it, start to identify with the truth basically, and then let the old ideas, the old notions, the old judgments, the old beliefs that you know now that they are wrong and that they are not the real deal, that's not the truth about you, but they're still part of your mind, part of your experience. So then you let those old beliefs, those old judgments, those old identities come into the light of your knowledge. And meaning into the light of your knowledge really means come into the light, into the awareness, into your own being. The light of knowledge, it means really coming to yourself, being yourself, and then all these old conclusions, old ideas, they come into your being. So this, in a very short summarized form, this threefold process of gaining basically self-knowledge, which is really the removal of self-ignorance. And so now we have entered today Mondays. It's the day Mondays dedicated to Shiva. Who is Shiva? Shiva is the great yogi, the Mahayogi. Parameshwara is the yogi of all yogi, and basically is representing the destructive principle. In the Vedic tradition, we talk about the sacred Trinity, and we have the principle of birth, creation, Brahma, and we have the principle of sustenance, Vishnu, and then we have the principle of destruction, and that principle we call Shiva. And so here we can look at in terms of what am I ready to let go. I'm now also dying in one way. We are incorporated new patterns, new habits, new language, new ideas, which are not really new. We're more remembering what we already are, but we're bringing them into our life. And so the old is starting to, doesn't have its same strength anymore. It's still going to be there, some things, and some things maybe are ready to pop off. And so this death that takes place when we come to the truth. And so this destructive principle of Shiva, we are inviting it, and today is a very auspicious day. Every day is auspicious and wonderful to pray to any god, goddess, to the universe. And Monday is dedicated specifically to Shiva. So it's a very great day to pray to Shiva and begin this cycle, this masa, this cycle now, that goes from now all the way to August, actually. And middle of August. Yeah, August 19th. So this is now this Shravana Masa period. So from now all the way to August 19, it's a special time to deepen your spiritual study, any study, but especially the spiritual study. Spiritual study means the study of yourself, the true self, the unseen. Right? And so it's also beautiful because today in our Ritualise Your Life Challenge, which is day 18, is dedicated to the unseen. It's the recognition of the unseen factor. And I'm going to go into that more in a moment. Basically, like we have the seen, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we know, what we engage with. And then there's the unseen, so much that we don't see with our eyes. And so we're going to go into that in a moment. And just right now, finishing this part of Shravana Masa, this cycle now. So any spiritual study that you are undertaking now is going to bring much more fruit. So your studies that you're doing now, they will be deeper, they will be bringing more results, they will bless you for a very long time. And so what is advised in the Vedic tradition, in the Jyotisha, is to spend some time, a good amount of time, doing really your spiritual studies. So Shravanam, like this threefold process of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyastanam. So we really spend time in Shravanam. So meaning we spend time in listening, in being attentive, in being in the student role, basically. Like, because in the Shravanam, when you're listening, you gotta be in the student role. You take you sit back and you lean back and you just listen. You listen to what is being said. What is the Shastra? What is the scripture saying? What is the Upadesha, the teaching saying? What is here we are listening to the Vedic teachings. Maybe you're also inquiring and want to study another spiritual tradition, the shamanic tradition, the Egyptian tradition, the Taoist tradition. Like so many beautiful spiritual traditions are there, and so now it's very auspicious to study, to listen, and to pray to Shiva. And when we pray to Shiva, because now this is the time of Shiva, then he specifically blesses us with all our, with the fulfillment of our desires. So it's very auspicious to chant to Shiva. And we're going to chant to Shiva now, very simple, very deep, very profound, very revered Shiva mantra, which probably most of you know, Om Namah Shivaya. And it's specifically auspicious to chant it on Mondays. And then you can chant this mantra, of course, any other day as well. And so, let's do that. So you can chant after me. Om Namah Shivaya, 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 Om Namah Shivaya. And take a moment to enjoy the immediate effect of chanting. And of course, when you're alone, you can chant much longer. The longer you chant, the deeper the result, the more the absorption. Unless your mind is very busy, then it will take you to all different places. So then you get to address that. Otherwise, chanting helps us to absorb and connect to Shiva, the yogi of all yogi. And so what I also do often is I visualize the form of Shiva. There are many forms of Shiva. Like one that is very famous is the one where he sits in Padmasana, in lotus position, or half Padmasana, Ardha Padmasana. So Padmasana, asana, the seat, Padma of the lotus, so then the legs are crossed, but you don't have to do that. You can also just have one crossed leg, doesn't have to be the lotus seat. Basically a comfortable, a sweet position. And then his spine is erect, his shoulders are rolled back, his neck is a little bit tucked in, and there is this smile on his face, it's a little bit of smile, and the eyes are almost closed, they're very relaxed, the eyes, and then he sits in meditation position. And so I often like to also bring that picture, that image of Shiva, and just meditate on his form, on his form that is composed, and he's resolved in himself. And he has a little bit of smile, there's a satisfaction there. There's triptihi. Triptihi means satisfaction. So he's satisfied in the meditation, just being by himself, with himself, in himself. There's a satisfaction. And so that's a beautiful image. And then if you know all the other instruments that he holds, like the damaru, the spear, then all of these objects can also be added on. Then it becomes a whole upasana, a big meditation on all the different qualities that Shiva portrays. So those are all so beautiful Vedic meditations. We do them in my courses. There's one course called Understanding the Mind. There are many different Vedic meditations in there. If you would like to go deeper into meditation, that course is also included in the Devi temple. So meditation is very important for us, as we all have a busy mind, and so taking care of our mind is like taking care of the body. Every day we take a shower, and so every day we take care of our mind. Every day we take care and check in. And at the beginning, it can be that you feel like there's nothing, like nothing is happening when you close your eyes. But then once you start to really meet and be with it and use these techniques, it can be tricky to do it alone. That's why it's good to have guidance, teachings, teacher, because then the guidance helps to open up these parts of the mind that are so shut down, that are closed, that are frozen, that are scared, often the little ones. So often there's a period of really attending to the little ones, the inner children. There are so many inner child meditation in that course, and we also cover that extensively in the Muse, in the Devoted Embodied Vedantic Integrated Coaching certification that starts again next year. It's a 1-year training, and there the first few months is all dedicated to inner child meditation, because we all have inner children, and they are waiting for us to come and be with them and bring them back to life. Many of them are frozen, they're alienated in exile because they have gone through very traumatic experiences. And so then the unconscious comes. God is in the form of the unconscious and saves the children, us, when we are small. We cannot handle that circumstance at that time, it's too much. So it goes into the unconscious. And then when we're adult, we experience this in the form that we are incapable of having a healthy relationship, for example. We're incapable of trusting. We're incapable of making money. We're incapable of really thriving in world. All of that is often, most of the time, big reason because they're inner children there, they're trapped. So a lot of our growth actually is dedicated to letting the inner children grow up. Many years I spent with my inner children, and people ask me, do you have children? And then I said, well, I don't have physical children, but I've had many, many inner children. I spent many years raising my inner children, and that is crucial. The spiritual journey is not complete, and we cannot even really be on the spiritual journey. We cannot even grow spiritually if we don't tend to the inner children. We get to tend to them, and they are. Why would we not want to do that? It's your inner child, it's you, it's that most precious being. And so it's the return of that innocence, of that magical being that you are, that you always were, but shut down because people told us we cannot be the way we are. We have to be strong. So, yeah, it's a beautiful, very important topic, inner children. And so, why did we talk about that now? Because meditations, often we can only go to deeper meditation, yes, absorption meditation, the japa meditation, the repetition of mantra, and this visualization, all of that. Sometimes they can be blocked. We can be blocked to go into those absorbed states or imagination capacity because of the inner children. And so then we get to tend to them first. And so chanting is wonderful. The inner children, they always love to chant, at least mine. They all love to chant, and it soothes the heart. So, Shiva, may he be with us, the great yogi, and may all his qualities become our quality. Shiva means the auspicious one in Sanskrit. Shiva is the auspicious, is the one that grants boons, the one that gives you immediate happiness. You just chant Shiva, and he gives you happiness. So, step number 18. And let me know how that lands for you, everyone who joined now. In the meantime, Yasmin is back. Beautiful. Lina, Kirsti, Isa, Virkerskan, Asensio. Beautiful. Yeah. Any questions? Any things that rise for you? Please share them. I love to hear. So this number 18 is dedicated to recognizing the unseen. I have my slides again. Lands beautifully. Oh, lovely to hear. Good. And so the chanting at the beginning, it helps to land, settle, and then we take in the teaching. It goes much deeper. So number 18, yesterday what did we learn? We learned about how to put on the mala, what the mala is, the repetition of mantras, the blessing of that. And now after having bathed, after having dressed, after having ornamented yourself, after having put a mala on, now is the time to take a moment to sit by the altar. This is my recommendation to all my students. The first thing when you come into my programs is basically you set up an altar. That was also the first teaching, basically, apart from the teaching itself, that you are whole and complete here and now. Like in terms of the tools, the first tool that I established in my life when I came to this spiritual journey was to establish an altar. My teacher said, he said, have to establish an altar, because it's the altar that represents the infallible abode. So the altar represents the infallible abode. The altar represents unconditional love. The altar represents that place, that sanctuary, where all of you is welcomed. The altar represents the place where you are validated completely as you are, where you are welcomed as you are. The altar represents that sanctuary, that safety. It's that stability, that place that we actually all seek outside of ourselves. Where do we seek that? In relationship, in career, even in our children. We seek this security. We seek the validation. We seek the approval. We seek happiness. We seek love. We seek it outside, in the people, in the world, in the career. And we do get it to a certain extent, but often it's not enough. We want more. We want it more often. We want it consistently. And then these places, they cannot give it to us all the time, 24/7, because the partner also has their things coming up. They're also seeking validation. The parents are seeking validation, and we seek validation from our parents, but then they cannot really validate us because they are not validating themselves. Then I seek validation by a friend, but the friend is not available right now. So then, yes, I have the therapist, very, very important. We all need to have therapists, because most of us have had dysfunctional families. And so therapy is a very important part of the emotional growth and of the spiritual journey. And often, in most cases, really 99%, we have to pay for therapy. It doesn't work unless we actually pay for it. That's also studied and seen and experienced. So let's say, we can also, so we do all of that. We have the therapist and we have the people, and yet the therapist is not going to be there all the time. And also maybe we go once a week, and that's how much money we can afford to pay. The parents, already we know, they're not giving us the validation we really want. The friend is not always there. The partner cannot always tell us they love us. And the world is very fluctuating. And so the altar represents, you give meaning to the altar. You establish this abode of love there. You create a place in your room or in your house that represents this absolute validation. It represents that therapist that costs nothing and that is available 24/7. And it represents that therapist actually that doesn't need another therapist. Every therapist that you go to, that therapist has a therapist. He only is a therapist because he had a therapist. So he's bringing his issue or their issue to their therapist. And so the altar represents that God, the one that doesn't need a therapist. It represents the one that has no problems. And so we're superimposing so much meaning onto that altar. And that's what my teacher said, we all as a human being, because we are emotional beings, we need this place, we need this abode. And once upon a time, the churches were those abodes for us. We would feel, I don't know if we ever like really felt safe in the church, but what was there before the church? Like in where most churches are placed, those were holy sites, pagan sites. They have been taken, and then church has put their church there. Underneath, before, there were holy sites, maybe altars, and I'm sure we all were there and offering our offerings. And now we don't feel safe to go to church because, like, the God that is represented there is not the abode of unconditional love. It's not the abode where you're validated exactly as you are. It's not the place where you're totally accepted as you are and there's no agenda for you to be different. No, in the church there is many agendas, and you have to go to confession in order to come into the kingdom of God. So no one of us wants to go to church anymore. And so now what we have in the West is yoga schools. Like yoga schools basically are our churches. But now, like even within the yoga school, you go to the yoga teacher. Most yoga teachers, they do not accept themselves. Most yoga teachers, they also still are, and I teach at yoga teacher trainings, and I am full and love and celebrate the yoga teachers. Like, thanks God as we have yoga teachers and meditation teachers and yoga schools. Like, it's so wonderful we have that now. And also, like, living in Bali for so many years, 20 years almost, and being in the yoga spiritual world, I also have seen a lot where the yoga teacher trainings that are out there, they are not really letting people truly come back to themselves. It's often very much focused on the asana. It's very much focused on the perfection of the posture, on the perfection of the breath, on the perfection on the meditation pose, on another ride, basically, where then it all becomes about how flexible we are, or how long we can hold the breath, or it is not based in self-acceptance. Many of the yoga teacher trainings that I have seen. And so then there's still a self-rejection there. And so then, like, that is actually passed on. Like, that perfectionism for the pose or for the practice then is also passed on to the students. And really, what is the yoga here for, or the meditation, or all of these tools? The whole spiritual body of knowledge is here to help us accept ourselves. Right? To actually stop the pushing, stop the judgments, and help us to come back home to ourselves and discover the abode of love that is our very nature. And so, basically, like, that is the gift and the whole point of this whole spiritual journey. And so, like, there are many beautiful places, yoga training studios out there, that maybe you can really find that. And I know many places where you can find it. But I also know many places where it's not there, where it becomes a whole competition, and who looks more beautiful and who is more flexible. And so then we create our own abode of love at home. Like, so at least you have it at home. And that's really where you want to feel that abode of love. Like, your home is supposed to be the abode of love, the home. And so also many of us, we are traumatized just with the word home or the word house, or to be in one place, because we have our memories from childhood where our home was not safe, like where our home was the place we wanted to run away from, avoid, because maybe mom and dad or family were angry all the time. And so then we never feel safe at home, not even in our own home, and we constantly go somewhere else. And so that we can look at if that's the case, and then like meet that part, which is really, again, it's the inner child that gets triggered by staying at home. And so then our journey and our process, our work is to like meet that inner child that doesn't feel safe at home, and bring it, integrate it, but establish that home for yourself that you perceived you didn't get as a child, that you needed in order to feel safe at home. And so that we also don't need to always go somewhere else in order to feel ourselves. And so the altar has so many benefits. It's such a, it's very unseen, the benefit. It basically, you don't really experience it until you really create the altar and sit by the altar. At least that's my experience, and I know from my students that they share with me the same. Like once I actually established the altar, it changed my life. Like I created this place and I cared for it. I took care of it. I cleaned it. I brought offerings. And then and what happens is also then, as soon as you sit down on your altar, like here you see, I always establish an altar wherever I go. I have my traveling altar, and then I have a huge altar in my home in Bali, my house in Bali. My whole house is an altar. Many little altars and then a big altar. And so you create that little altar. It could be like just even one stone that represents your altar, that represents the abode of love. But you create somewhere, and you create, the best is to start somewhere and to create it in your home. And most of you probably already have an altar, but maybe you have it without calling it an altar. Like you have a place where you put objects from when you go to holidays or something that was given to you, and then that object sits there on the table and it reminds you of that person that you really truly care for. And so every time you see that object, you're like something happens in your heart. There is like this feeling invoked that, oh, I'm loved, I'm cared for. Like, so all the objects really that you have at home, you want that these objects bring out these feelings of love and care. So if you have things at home that are not bringing out these feelings in you, I invite you to actually get rid of them. like I talked about it yesterday or a few days ago, I don't remember, but I talked about how to shed skin, to really embody the truth of my being, many things had to die. And one way how many things died was through giving away the unnecessary things. So now is a great moment to like unclutter and see what are the things that you have at home that are not really like mirroring anymore who you are, what you are, who you want to be, or maybe still like there's some melancholy there, some like you got this sweater from this old boyfriend or girlfriend and you're still holding on to it, right? Every time you see the sweater, like, oh, you know. But now maybe you take the sweater and like, okay, thank you, boyfriend, girlfriend, being, and you cracked my heart open and now I'm ready to like let it go. And then you process that feeling. So like see what you have at home, scan, get rid of the stuff that is unnecessary, and then you create intentionally an altar that represents this abode of love. That then you go to, my invitation is to go to it every day. And that would be the step 18, where every day we go to the altar and we recognize the unseen factor. Because the altar, like it represents that abode of love. It represents the oneness, the truth of our existence, really. It represents compassion. It represents safety. It represents true happiness. So you then also have objects that represents all this quality that you want to bring into your life. So I in my courses, I speak a lot about altar because it's so important. It's really a spiritual practice. But for now, I'm going to close here. And you can also download my altar guide if you go to my website, devischool.info. There are PDFs, and one of them, there are free PDFs. It calls Altar Guide. And so you can download it, and then there's a guide of how to set up your altar, basically. So I invite you to do that. And so basically then, like this would be now the step 18, the initiation of setting the intention for the day. So that's very important. To set your intention, we call it the sankalpa of the day. So you sit on the altar and you take a moment to recognize the unseen. Right? The unseen means that which you cannot see, but that which you know is ever present. What is that? The grace factor of life. Right? The grace factor, we call it the daivam. It is that because of which you exist. It's that because of which we all exist. It's that because of which the whole universe exists. It's that because of which you woke up this morning. It's that because of which you caught the train and didn't miss your train when going to work. And so we are acknowledging that, like today, I've been given a new day, and now I'm going out about my day, and I'm acknowledging that there are a gazillion obstacles in the way. So many obstacles that can surface and can be in the way for me to accomplish what I want to accomplish today. You want to go to work, and if you are needing to take the bus every day there's a possibility for you to miss the bus. But it's grace factor that every time you are actually there on time. Like we think that we are in control, but the truth is we are not really in control. That we discover more and more. The reality of life is we have no control. We have prayerful management, we would call it. There's this prayerful management in there, because like control is really a sign that I'm not understanding the law of life. I'm not understanding that there is a grace factor there. I don't acknowledge the unseen. And all we want is to actually let go of control and be in trust. Just like when we were children, when we were babies, we had no control. We were totally helpless, but we had absolute trust. It's incredible that goes together. We were absolutely helpless. We had no control whatsoever, but we totally trusted. We trusted in the universe. And so our whole life, we just want to get back to that trust of the baby in mother's arm. And so you can trust, actually. You can trust. We just need to know who to trust, what to trust. And often we trust the things that are not trustworthy. So we get to learn what is trustworthy. What can I trust? What is trustworthy? So that's all a learning process. And as we are learning, and we're acknowledging all these obstacles that are there throughout the day, I'm acknowledging this unseen factor, and I'm not afraid of it. Like, that's not the point here. We're not here to pray because I'm this helpless being and, oh God, come and save me. Like, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's everything to do with knowledge, understanding, and reverence. Like, knowledge that I don't have any control. There's so many factors involved for anything to be accomplished, for anything to work out. So many factors, so many people. It's all grace. It's all daivam. And in that, there is the possibility for things to go wrong. Not that they really go wrong, right? They may just not go the way I want them to go, but there is a reason for it. And so I acknowledge that things may go differently than what I want them to go. And so I'm acknowledging, I'm praying for that to be neutralized. So in other words, the pain, the possible pain that can come my way throughout the day may be neutralized. Because we're all here incarnated as a human being, which means you have to go through a certain amount of pain and pleasure. That's the whole point. We all got to go through a certain amount of pain and pleasure. And so the pain we can neutralize to a high degree. And how do we do that? With setting the intention for the day. Because then when things do not go the way I want, I already have a shock absorber. Okay, here, things are not meant to be in that way. There must be a reason. Namaha. Okay, I'm going to feel this. Like, I'm going to feel the discomfort. I'm going to feel the helplessness. I'm going to feel the disappointment. I'm ready for it. And now, what I'm going to do with this anger, the disappointment, the helplessness? Am I going to now throw it out to this person that apparently caused it, that is there in front of me, or the conductor, or the person in the traffic, or the person in the shop? No. You're not going to do that. You're going to take all of that and bring it to your altar. You're going to take it home and you're going to deal with your shit. It's like that reel that I made a few days ago about like malasana, this asana, this posture of taking out the waste. Like, we want to be kings and queens and sovereign people. We got to take care of our waste, of our shit. And so like the situations are there for us, for this to be brought to our awareness so that we can then deal with it. And where do we deal with it? It has to be at a place that you feel safe. Like at a place where you're not judged for your stuff, for your waste. At a place where you have the time to process. It's safe to process. Where people won't like make weird faces because you're crying or because you're angry. Or people will tell you you shouldn't be sad. It's going to get better. Like, no, you need to have an abode of love, an abode of power, an abode of validation. And that's your altar. And so then we're practicing this in the morning and create this safe place at the altar. And then eventually what happens, because you go to the altar every day, you start to internalize the altar. So then wherever you go, you always have this altar with you. You always have this safe abode with you. So you're starting to establish a relationship with the unseen. You're starting to establish a relationship with the grace factor, a higher power, the all-powerful being, basically, the all-knowledgeable being, or the infallible mother, like you're establishing a relationship with the mother that cannot fail, the father that cannot fail. So basically this is the invitation to sit by your altar. Create an altar, and then take a moment to sit by the altar, and then you can, like in Bali we have lots of flowers, so I have lots of flowers in my garden. I go out, I pick a flower, and then I place the flower in my hand. I place the right hand on top of the left hand, and then I do this intention. May all the unpleasant situations of the day, or all possible unpleasant situations of the day, be neutralized. May I be able to be with them and then take care of it in a loving way. May my day be free from obstacles. I offer these flowers for the purpose of the fulfillment of my desire. I offer this flower for the purpose of the new job or the new offering that I have. I offer this flower for the purpose of attracting new people into my container. I offer this flower for the purpose of selling all my paintings. So then you're like telling the universe, like, I'm going to go out into my day-to-day life. This is what I'm doing. I'm offering this flower for this to be fulfilled, and then to neutralize all the unpleasant and obstacles that can be there. And so then you can also add, of course, your additional prayers. Here, like I would do whole pujas. Here is the moment where I do then different types of pujas. In Navaratri, we have done many different of these pujas. In all my containers, we also basically do puja. Puja means this prayer and ritual where we bring lots and lots of offerings. We learn all of that in the priestess initiation training in Bali that takes place in March. And also in the Devi temple, there are different courses there in puja. It's such a beautiful, even a deeper, more elaborate way to establish a relationship with the unseen. And so basically here then, the mantra, it's a simple mantra that you can chant, Om Devyai Namaha. And so Namaha I offer to that which is all shining. And you can also chant any of the other mantras, but this is a very beautiful mantra that I chanted a lot, many, many thousands of times. Devi, Deva, Devata is the self-shining being. Probably the word divine comes from the Sanskrit root div, that which is self-shining. And so I offer this flower to that which is shining, that which is luminous, that which brings the fruit. So, Om Devyai Namaha, Om Devyai Namaha, Om Devyai Namaha, Om Devyai Namaha. And so if you have many flowers, you can also then offer a flower after each Namaha actually. So Namaha, Om Devyai Namaha. Then we take a flower, we hold it to the heart, and we offer it. Like, I want something from the universe. I also give something to the universe. And so I'm offering these prayers with flowers from my heart. Om Devyai Namaha. Om Devyai Namaha. Om Devyai Namaha. And then if you have additional flowers, I always love to take a flower and place it in my hair as a reminder that I am the sacred, adorning, an additional adorning of the body temple in India and Bali. Like all the people, they adorn themselves with the flowers. It's so beautiful, independently of being male, female. Everyone adorns themselves with the flowers. So this is the this step 18 of our Ritualize Our Life. Yeah. Oops. This was the... So here, this is just an additional act that you can do. So before you do the intention, you can also light a candle. And then lighting the candle, the light represents the light of knowledge. Like, so as you light the candle, you're also inviting knowledge and truth to be with you, to see things clearly. And then you put the flower into your hands, you cover the flower with your right hand like this, close your eyes, set the intention of the day, and offer the flower to the light. Or you can offer the flower to any object that is standing there on your altar. In the altar guide, I speak more about all the different objects that you can put on your altar. Basically all objects that invite this love, validation, strength, courage, all these qualities that you want to cultivate in your hand. And then with each mantra you can offer one flower. Or if you don't have flower, you can also imagine flowers. You can imagine the frangipanis, imagine the roses, imagine the gardenias. Or if you live in Portugal or in Sweden, if you can go and get some leaves or some stones and just pick from nature lovingly what is given, and then you offer it on your altar. And in this way you start to establish this relationship with the unseen. Yes, this is the step number 18 of our Ritualize Your Life challenge. If you have any questions, please go ahead and share. Good. So, 18. Well, 18. Now we are we are now in halfway, right? 10 plus 10 is 20. 8 plus 8 is 16. 36. We're halfway through. Yay! Celebrating that. It's a moment of celebration. Halfway through our Ritualize Our Life challenge. So now the last phase. This is wonderful. And now tomorrow if we wake up, we have step number 19. That is actually also another step that we will stay at the altar. So now the next steps that are coming are all steps that I invite you to do sitting by the altar. Or if you are not resonating with the whole altar thing, like you can also just then find a place and then do everything internally, in your heart as a meditation. It's totally possible as well. Do we place the hands on the right side, then cover left hand with the right? Do we place the hands on the right side, then cover left hand with the right? What do you mean? I don't understand. Do we place the hands on the right? Yes, you're loving being on your altar. Yeah. Do we place the hands on the right side, then cover left hand with right? Yeah. So in India, we placed the hands actually on the right leg, and the right hand covers the left hand. I think I am mirroring here, so maybe it shows the opposite. But usually it's the left hand touches the right leg, and then the flower, and then the right hand is on top. This is like the traditional Sankalpa Mudra. For some reason, I recall the hands on the right side. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's like the formal way of doing the Sankalpa. And then the more like emotional, like when you really want to hold it and you have this special wish, this special intention, this special desire, hold it to the heart. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful morning, day, night, wherever you are. And I'll see you tomorrow. Om.